Hello, everyone, and thank you for spending some time with us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I am also joined by my colleague Jose Levy. Jose will be today's presenter, and he'll be able to take you on a deep dive into the topic of winning at portfolio management with outcome-driven metrics. I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments, the industry, and OnePlan. Thank you again, and I will now turn it over to Jose.
Thank you, Robert. And thanks everyone for joining today to chat with us about winning at portfolio management with outcome-driven metrics. It's a big topic. However, it's very much in the mainstream in business circles as a result of the pandemic and the changes that have occurred to our organizations. So we're going to try to approach it from a portfolio management perspective, so you can see how we might be able to help you in becoming better at portfolio management and outcome-driven metrics. So the first, I'll just briefly touch on where it all starts with strategic frameworks. We'll follow on how that allows us to connect strategy to execution, the importance of portfolio management, OnePlan for strategic portfolio management, our solution that addresses that, the component of our solution that addresses that, and then some summary and wrap up. So the first is just a recognition that being adaptive is constant. Even before the pandemic, the topic of business agility was accelerating, and the global pandemic just put that even more as a priority for organizations. If you can think how your organization responded to what happened over the last 18 months, you might identify, major changes that occurred as a result of having to adapt to what was going on locally, nationally, and globally. We have gone through the global pandemic. It's not over yet, but we're on the tail end of it, and we have felt economic impact, regulatory impacts. Technology continues to disrupt social changes, given everything that's gone on, and also our customers, the demand from our customers, given what occurred over the last 18 months. And really, it begs the question, so what changes are you making in strategy, execution, management to thrive? In other words, now that you've gone through it, what changed and what are you going to be changing in order to be more adaptive as a result? So, it all starts with the strategic frameworks, and it's interesting how they have all evolved, and the cultural and organizational preferences for one versus the other. We run across, customers using just about every one of them. It's interesting, to see the effectiveness of one versus the other in a particular organization. I think in general, organizations are, have not perfected the strategy to execution challenge. There's either very good definition by leadership, executive leadership, and that strategy then is not either well understood or doesn't permeate well to the rest of the organization. Organizations continue though, and parts of them do well enough to survive. And I list here also the latest and greatest objectives and key results, which we're going to be focusing on. I mean, in the end, they're all an approach to supporting leadership and the rest of the organization to delivery on the strategy. So that's really what the focus is. And again, your organization might have a variation of these, but it all is about defining what you need to achieve and how you're going to achieve it, and then breaking it down through parts of the organization that are going to contribute to that. Now, the interesting part, and I love this graphic from Gartner because it highlights the complexity in actually making strategy a reality. Within OnePlan, we focus on portfolio program management, project and product management. So we have our solutions have a direct relationship to that strategy execution, and we have capabilities to define and manage that strategy or track that strategy execution and the relationship to program, portfolio, and product. But it's not only that. You see at the very top enterprise architecture, which includes also business architecture. And that is a core component that addresses organizational design, addresses value streams, addresses capabilities, addresses applications, data, architecture. So you have to take it into account. It's part of how transformation will occur. You will make changes to your enterprise architecture. It's another area where organizations, not necessarily, some do very well and have, enterprise architecture groups that contribute significantly to IT and to the business. I would say that in general, it is not an area of focus for organizations, and it should be. You see there are also governance, which has to do with having a process that can monitor and enable following the portfolio, project, and product management within the organization. And finally, I'll touch on delivery because it's become much more important as we are becoming adaptive with Agile and waterfall methods within organizations. I think it's by now also mainstream that all organizations are basically adaptive because within the organizations, there are minor or major components of an organization that are actually delivering in some Agile fashion. So keep that in mind because what we're really trying to understand is, how can we strengthen the connection between strategy and the other components, portfolio and program management in particular. I thought I'd bring this up because it fascinates me how we talk about the same taxonomy. It might have a different meaning and we might be applying differently in an organization, but this is actually from PMBOK Guide 6th edition from 2017, and you can see that the connection between strategy and portfolio is there. From portfolio to program is also there, and we see business impact, which is really the topic of today, our outcome-driven metrics. Business value realization, benefit management, and an entire discipline on its own. And the cyclical nature or the cycle, the life cycle of managing a portfolio, which has gone from being an annual exercise now in a best practice fashion to being a quarterly exercise and even monthly in a lean portfolio management approach. So, and this is a portfolio at the highest levels where investment decisions are being made. So we have been talking about this for some time now, okay? And by no means, PMBOK Guide 6th edition was the first time it came out. Actually, it was there beforehand. So we are just trying to get better at it by enabling with technology, by improving the process, again, by seeking to be more agile, which I'll address in a second. Because if you go down to the next and latest approaches, this is safe for lean enterprises, portfolio configurations. This is safe lean portfolio management. And strategy does come into effect. You see here that the enterprise or if you're a government organization is going to define some strategic themes. Those strategic themes are reflected as OKRs, objectives and key results, which we talked about, which are then going to translate to our portfolio vision, which is going to include value streams. So those three elements, I know that I connected them all together, but there's a lot that goes on into how you define epics into value streams and do lean portfolio management. It's an aggregation of program planning and teams that are delivering products with features. So I know it's a big picture. It has a lot of different elements, and but the point I want to make is we are talking about strategy. We are talking about portfolios, and we don't call them projects. We call them epics, which are experiments in the initial stages that allow us to deliver features through our program plans and program increments. So it's a newer method, a different approach, but we're talking about the delivery of value and through after the definition of strategy. As I mentioned before, Agile portfolio management is an end state for organizations. It allows the organization to deliver faster, increasing business agility, and as I said earlier, it begins with the objectives and key results that are within the strategic themes. And I show how that is the focus of leadership, to define those objectives and be able to then translate them into portfolios that have those value stream and those epics. So next I want to address our topic, which is really the OKR that I showed earlier, which is again objectives and key results. And just for illustrative purposes, I show one here. And the focus of the message for the webinar is really that what we have to do is be much more driven to defining objectives that are outcome based. In other words, what's the outcome that will be achieved if the result is met? And you could have also output based objectives, but for the most part, what you want to do is focus on the outcomes, so that then the results, the key results, are definitely output driven. What is the output from what a team does that will allow you to reach the objective? What are the milestones to reach the objective? With the key results should communicate what will change. And I think the sample highlights one of the difficulties is that we are working in hierarchical or structured organizations, and there's a tendency to cascade, and there's even debate whether that's the correct way of doing it, because what we should be doing is really aligning bottom up rather than deconstructing top down. So it's a function of a hierarchical organization, and I think more than anything, it shows that if this is in reality what the organization is doing, organization should be thinking more about going towards products and programs that deliver those products. Now, you could have that taking place. So I'm not saying that just by laying it in this fashion, these are not the objectives and key results that are being delivered by programs, but there's a danger into falling into those traditional methods by just cascading a objective and key result hierarchy, and really not focusing on the better practice of having teams define exactly what they're going to do in order to contribute to meeting the objective that's been defined at their level. So the key takeaway here is for your objectives, focus on outcomes, and your key results that are tied to those objectives should be defining how are we going to actually reach the objectives. They will also have measures, by the way, so you will be seeing how these key results are met, and in aggregate, how they actually allow you to achieve the outcome. So in order to do that, we talk a lot about being adaptive. And I kicked off by talking about being adaptive. And here, in most cases, our customers are either adaptive. That means that they will have to accommodate epics and projects, Agile and waterfall, or even hybrid. And that means also tooling. So, you're going to have your Agile planning tools together with your waterfall planning tools. Some customers have gone a little further and are now, are at what I would call Agile adaptive. They're kind of in the middle between being 100%, shift left organization, operating exclusively through Agile methods. They do exist. They're rare, but it can be achieved. It just takes a very long time and a lot of commitment from leadership, which we'll talk about in a second. But again, the point of showing this is, again, you want to be adaptive. You're going to have to incorporate Agile methods, and you're going to have to change your portfolio management capabilities. So this is kind of interesting, because going towards that portfolio management success, what exactly does that mean? So what that means is that the first bubble is in the Venn is interesting. Portfolio alignment. So we've always been able to align projects to our strategies through association weights, ranking impact of a project, a program, or a portfolio to strategy or organization. So the issue is the discipline in doing it, and the litmus test in determining whether it's just an exercise, or whether those value the alignment of business drivers is actually real and taking place, and whether it's actually being used. Again, in reality, although in practice it might be being done, the meaningfulness of that connection is very, very rare. The second is also one that is common. So you can have business cases and within your portfolio management system that define the return that you're expecting from making an investment. Again, at different levels, whether it's a program or project. And the real issue is that are we really measuring the business outcome or the impact after the investment? And again, very few organizations actually do that tracking, and it's a critical component of determining the success. And again, going back to that outcome versus output, did the project, is the project contributing to the outcomes? So that's one that you can always improve. And then the third one is portfolio flexibility, which was tested during the past 18 months of the global pandemic. The changes that you have to make in order to adapt to changing conditions. So, with the pandemic, how our projects were stopped. Other projects were started that weren't even in the initial, probably, annual planning cycle, which also, from a better practice standpoint, brings the need to do quarterly planning rather than annual planning, where you have your list of projects that are going to be executed over the year. So if you do all three, and this is kind of the interesting catch-all, and again, we're connecting strategy here, we're connecting our business outcomes, and here we're being adaptive and connecting Agile. If you're able to do all three, you could be one of the few higher performing organizations with 2.5 times faster delivery than if you were not. focusing on these pillars of portfolio management success. So this is something that we guide customers on through our OnePlan Solution and advisory services. So if you're able to focus on all three, what do you really need to as a success factor, define within the organization? Well, the first one is goes without saying for any enterprise initiative, leadership commitment, and it's not only the funding, but is also persuading, making the arguments for the change and the benefits to the organization and how everybody needs to participate. Recently we have been part of organizational change initiatives where that has not occurred or hasn't occurred as it should, and the results are very, very evident. So I would say that if for portfolio management improvement and agile portfolio management moving in that direction, leadership commitment has to be the first step. You're going to be building internal capabilities. Now, you can take that as capabilities from a business architecture standpoint, but also the capability to deliver the transformation program internally. So that could mean coaches, that could mean training, that could mean it will be part of your transformation program, but in the end you need to be able to do it on your own and not necessarily rely on your external experts all the time. That's when it becomes part of your culture. And after years of having practiced it, you have to focus on having those internal experts that you can rely on. It is enterprise level scope, so this is not business unit. This is not a particular function or group. You can start there as an experiment, but you have to have an eye that it's gonna eventually hit every part of the organization, and you have to plan for that both from a funding standpoint and implementation standpoint. Organizing around value, very important concept. Going back again to our outcome-driven metrics, our OKRs that are going to deliver those business outcomes. In most cases, what we see is it's value to the customer. So that's where really fastest benefit attainment occurs, when you're actually focusing around what you're going to be delivering your customers. Already talked about the folks in the business outcomes, having real well-defined OKRs so that everybody knows how they can contribute to them. And then the last one, we talk about it a lot, very rarely does it get done well, which is a very good change management plan. We have to get everyone to buy in essentially within the organization. And all across, up and down, every one of the echelons of your organization, everyone has to buy in and participate in the change event that is going to be your adaptive portfolio or agile transformation. All right, so I'm going to talk a few minutes about our OnePlan solution, then I will give you a brief demonstration. So the way OnePlan was built and designed was really to connect strategy to execution. And what that means is leadership levels, everyone within the organization that has a hand in defining the direction and where the organization is going to go needs to be involved in defining that strategy, reflecting it within the solution, and then having everyone else participate in defining how we're going to get to that end result. So you'll see that we'll talk about objective and key results, and then everything below that can enable reaching that defined end state. We focus on portfolio management, which is really our bailiwick, where our experiences and what that means to an organization, again, in whatever form that may be, whether it's adaptive or agile. And we recognize that obviously we're going to have to manage financials. I talked about how that's one of the, until you get to the definition of the financial value, it doesn't really become clear or that important to a leadership team. And then resources, because we don't have endless resources, which means we have to monitor how we use the resources to reach that. Here's how we facilitate enterprise transformations and our agile transformation journey. Again, I stated earlier that, again, very few organizations that are in traditional portfolio management, they're in some way right of adaptive or left of adaptive, and very few are in the agile PPM state. And we list OnePlan here prominently because we can integrate really any source data in order to make those portfolios real with the work that's going to deliver those business outcomes. So we can again accommodate any place within this spectrum, and any variety of tools that you might be using in order to improve your portfolio management and move you further in that agile transformation journey. What you're about to see is our OnePlant Solution, and I laid out here that what we're doing is defining that strategic portfolio plan, again tied to our OKRs, and defining resources, defining financials at any level of a planning hierarchy, and then bringing up the delivery and connecting it in order to define those cumulative benefits that are going to drive the business outcomes that I addressed earlier. There is status reporting and also reporting within Power BI that allows you to get those insights. And again, we integrate through our work plan or our agile plan any of your external tools. Our work plan and agile plan can be used without any external tools, but if you are using external tools, we can bring those that work in to see how it connects to the strategy portfolio. One more attribute on OnePlan and why it's important for you to consider if you are a Microsoft shop or you have made heavy investments in Teams and Microsoft Office 365. OnePlan is a perfect fit for your organization from a technology standpoint. It's purpose built for portfolio management. We have connected it, if you will, to all of the Microsoft clouds, so it can be deployed in different ways depending on how you are using the Microsoft clouds, whether it's just Teams and Office 365, or that you've made the move to Power Apps already, or in using Project for the Web, and also incorporating Azure DevOps if you're an organization that is using Azure DevOps. So we have that flexible deployment architecture, and we have the ability to bring in all of that work, as I said, in order to define the impact on the business outcome. So there's a lot of opportunity to remove redundant tool sets in project and portfolio management by using OnePlan, because it gives you the opportunity to leverage the Microsoft clouds even more. So third-party tools that don't really connect well or are native to the Microsoft clouds can be eliminated. So from that standpoint, we provide that value. So now I will go and give you a glimpse of OnePlan if you haven't seen it before, and we'll focus on the strategy components. and we'll come back and do a closing. So the first thing I want to show is that we actually will deliver OnePlan as part of Microsoft Teams, and all of us that are team-centric, spend a lot more time in Teams than we used to. What was Outlook before? Probably Outlook is still important, but if you're Microsoft-centric, but Teams is now for one of the two leading tools for collaboration, remote work, and the future of work. So you can see here that we have different what we call groups, which are sites just showing that you can have different implementations of OnePlan here. And the one that I've selected is Strategic Portfolio Management, because you can use OnePlan exclusively for Strategic Portfolio Management. I showed that we have our adaptive and our agile solutions, but within I'm just going to focus on this one for the sake of our topic about outcomes and outputs. And when I get into OnePlan, this particular strategic portfolio management solution, is focused exclusively on the definition of objectives and key results. So you see here within our planning hierarchy, the areas that are shown focus only on those. I will go to our adaptive solution in a second, so you can see how you can combine that with portfolio management. But in this case, if you're only interested in managing a portfolio of objectives and key results, that's where you would do it. You can see here that our views are shown within our list area, and within this list, we can create one or as many as we need to reflect how we want to plan and track our objectives and key results. So in this case, I would start with key results by status, but if you wanted to do prioritization on your key results, you can do that, and you can prioritize them as well as your objectives, by the way. But in this case, we're focusing on key results because we are going to be associating them to our projects or initiatives. Every one of these has metadata within them, so you can even plan work. But here I've defined its status. You can see key results information, the metric where it's at, and we could be tracking this through snapshots in order to see where we are. We're currently at 85% of the target. It does have a lead. In other words, we have someone that is accountable for this key result, and it's tied to grow our corporate global business. We have it as a high priority, and it's within marketing. So you can do that for every one of your key results. I'll go here, and really interested in seeing who has the most objectives, who owns the most objectives from our corporate standpoint. And you can see that in this case, marketing has the most, product development has a couple, and IT has some also. This becomes even more interesting if we go to our board, where we can see kind of the same concept. In this case, we have business units as our columns, so the same business units, but here we're focusing on the objectives. So who has the most objectives? And you can see here that marketing again, if we go, let's make this smaller so we can just have a better view of who has the most. And yeah, marketing has the most, and not only that, but there's a number of dependencies that exist between our objectives. Win best product of the year is at 100%, but it's dependent. Achieve a product engagement of 80%. WAU is actually dependent on it. So we have to make sure that we address funding and resources in order to make sure that dependency is preserved. The solution also has roadmaps. I'll just hit on the objective roadmap real quick, just so you can see. this is configurable. We have business units, coloring status with quarterly timeframes, and we're looking at objectives here. At any time, if I wanted to see, well, transform corporate culture is actually has dependency on launching new products successfully, I could come here and then do a quick edit in order to see what's going on and what are the key results that we are counting on in order to meet that objective. So we can see the relationship directly between the objective and the key result. Interesting that we have as outcomes define budget and benefits around it. So then we can compare as we roll up everything that has been defined or is related to this objective and key result to see if we actually are on track in terms of our expected ROI. We do have time frames here. Now, in this example, we have them as annual, but you can do quarterly if you're at a lower level. So there's really no loan limitation in terms of the time frame that you define for your objectives and key results. And finally, I'm going to hit dashboard because there is a separate set of reports just for our strategic portfolio management. So we have here our objective portfolio with a reporting of the cumulative progress based on the key result attainment. So you can see here that improved customer excellence has, our NPS is at 44%. So we're not actually meeting that. So there might be some corrective action that we have to do or get into, exactly why we haven't been able to address that. We can go further down into, our objective status report that tells us exactly, when is it due. And again, another perspective on the elements that where we're not meeting the progress, as has been reported. You can also, focus on that in terms of, how we're getting closer to our objective metric. Objective progress. Here we have filters. Let's focus on the active ones, and let's go and do marketing since they're the ones that had the most, during this time frame. Grow our corporate global business. That's really what they're working on. Let's go and look at IT. And you know what? Let me go ahead here and also put the proposed ones, so I can see everything that marketing actually is going to be doing. So generate more marketing qualified leads, growing our corporate global business, and increasing brand awareness. So that's where marketing is contributing to the business. Here we did marketing, but I'll go ahead and see that they're the ones, again, that one metric which they were off track based on the key results. Summary of key results. And now we're at the lower level where we can actually see, and let's go ahead and marketing again. They have the majority of the key results, and we might have to support through greater investment being able to meet these results, because a number of them are off for marketing. And here's some other ones. Other divisions have them also, but marketing again has the greatest weight. So we'll probably need to focus on initiatives that can address this. And from a graphical standpoint here, for all business units, and we have a couple here that are at 0, which means that again they're either not being reported on, or we haven't actually had initiatives that actually impact them. So one interesting thing, and this goes for our OnePlan Solution, you can have what we call insights, which are basically checks against compliance with meeting certain governance rules, so overdue tasks. So here, there's some things that I, as a user, have not been done. This user, a number of updates that haven't occurred. So, every user that has, in this case, objective or key result assigned is going to receive a notification here showing that you're basically late and have to do something against it. There is also a thread. So if I wanted to take a corrective action and comment on any of the items that you saw, I can go within the item itself, leave a comment for my team member. And here you can see that we lay out. In this case, we are talking about objective and key results only, which means that these are all the plan types are going to be just within that that area. Plans I own, there's all the plans. You can see here that in this case I am a portfolio manager, so I can see everything. And if you're in compliance, you're going to get a compliance score of 100. So and it gives you an idea of where you're off in doing your tracking. So that is our strategic portfolio management solution. I'm going to now go to our adaptive portfolio management solution because it brings the whole picture together that we were talking about in terms of having portfolio connected to strategy, value within the portfolio, and also flexibility, adaptability. So big difference is that, as you see here, we have other areas that have been defined. So this is, the adaptive portfolio management includes strategy. So I showed you previously only strategy. In this case, we actually have ideas. So again, taking an idea from inception all the way through delivery in the portfolio. We have strategy, which is what we showed earlier on objective and key results. And you can actually appreciate the hierarchy here. You can have multiple levels, by the way. In this case, for just for as a simplification, we only showed 2 levels, but you can have multiple levels. And I think the big difference is that here we can actually tie in projects or programs that are being done. So in order for us to deliver on this key result that's driving this objective, we have the Fabricam project, which has all of its metrics here. If it was more than one, we would be seeing here if we wanted to create a project or an epic in order to impact that key result, we could do it from here. So that's how we actually establish that connection that I stated was critical between the strategy and execution. So I mean, I started directly within a key result, and I'm going all the way down now. This is an epic that is reflecting an agile framework. So we're taking an epic through a lean portfolio Kanban basis, and you can see here that we have actually associated there was the key result that actually allowed us to see the key result having that initiative supporting it. So within this epic, we need to be seeing outputs that are actually going to be affecting that key result. Now, you could be reflecting it directly here within the form in terms of value statement or specific metrics that are driving the epic, or you could, from a financial standpoint, again addressing that financial component, we could be looking not only at budget but also looking at benefits. And if we complete this epic successfully, what is it going to deliver to the organization in terms of budget and benefits? So that's that tie-in to value that I showed earlier. And obviously, this is yielding a calculation within our details page for the epic. The second component was resources. Again, from a value standpoint, what are we spending in terms of resources. These are committed resources, so these are, utilization of resources. We can, look at the overall utilization. This is utilization of resources, which with a rate in our financials, turns into spend of our internal resources. So that's, again, another tie-in to that success factor of value that I talked about. And then finally, the adaptability component is addressed by having the ability to connect a backlog to Azure, in this case, Azure DevOps. So we can manage both schedule and backlog within OnePlan, and even include both if needed. So, have the ability to bring in data and actually, see when our release is actually going to take place. So here's an ability to look at both perspectives with OnePlan. You're going to bring in the backlog and also look at it on a schedule basis. This data is obviously being is deriving from Azure DevOps. And if I go back to my portfolio, so from a portfolio management standpoint, looking up at the strategy, how are we impacting strategy? So the next perspective I want to provide is that if you recall, one of our three critical success factors for portfolio success was, what are the associated results? So here we actually can see, what, when the project is defined, what are we actually impacting from a associated results standpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and do this so I can see that, or I can, so I can see exactly, which one a number of projects are impacting, our associated result of achieve product engagement of 80%. So that's one that we have to, focus on. Are we funding it sufficiently in order to achieve our outcome? You can see, the rest of our associated results in terms of, what these projects are impacting, and also see which ones haven't actually been defined. So this is a case of not having strategic alignment, because we actually don't have the associated result on it. So this is something that, PMO would have to work on. Now, this is a proposed project, so it's brand new. So that's perfectly fine, but this is an active project and it doesn't have an associated result. So we have an issue here. And, we could very easily come in and, the project manager or scrum master could come in and define what that is. So if we focus more on prioritization, we talked about value definition. So, and here we can see that we have a stack ranking of our projects on an ongoing basis. You can be, again, on a monthly, quarterly basis, you can be moving depending on what the prioritization score is. This prioritization score, is driven by these drivers, which you can change. But you can see here that, we can include WSJIF also here for our Agile planning, Agile plans. And we can additionally see, delivery timeframes. We'll go and do quarterly. And we can then roll up our resources in order to see where we have shortfalls. So again, focusing on value, which is what drives more of a reality around the portfolio management process. And also, if we've defined individual budgets, and you can actually do also a summary of your budgets or benefit target, for instance, in this case, as a scenario, and see whether you're actually hitting that with your with everything within the portfolio. We don't have enough time to go through, how we actually go through doing prioritization, but the tools are here to do what if scenarios and saving of scenarios based on changes to state or movement sequencing of projects that then drives changes, corresponding changes in budget or resources, depending on how you're managing. So, and then everything, as I stated earlier, is within Power BI, within a report app. All of these are available to you as part of a OnePlan implementation, and we have obviously the ability to make changes based on your specific configuration. So in this case, the report pack actually goes from objective all the way to individual issue summary for projects and plans. So covers all of the major dimensions, perspectives of portfolio and project management. So with that, I will move to close our webinar. So here we find ourselves in an interesting place. We have gone through the pandemic. We're exiting the pandemic. Still challenges, by the way, so I don't want in any way to assume that we're all clear. We still have to continue working through the remaining challenges of the pandemic and now recovery and the definition, of future work that has resulted from, the change that occurred. So likewise, plan the changes to your strategy, definition, and execution. If you learned, if you saw, you have been able to survive in some way, shape, or form, how can you become better by adopting some of these best practices in defining business outcomes and defining portfolio management in order to meet the business outcomes? If you haven't heard about adaptive portfolio management or haven't thought about it in this way, we highly recommend that you go in this delivery model, because it's really the way to become drive business agility, become adaptive, and accommodate changes that are occurring again at a breakneck speed at times. And you will have to work in an agile fashion, as well as in a traditional waterfall fashion. And finally, whatever you decide to do, you have to commit to a transformation that involves the entire organization, that is long-term. And some of the success factors earlier that I talked about for a transformation, have to be addressed in terms of getting leadership commitment, true leadership commitment to the long term, and changing their mindset in order to become better at portfolio management in this fashion. So our approach to supporting you in doing this is, focusing on people, process, and technology. I mean, it might be an old adage, but it's very, very true. In addition to that, the organizational changes that are going to have to occur. So people, process, technology, and organization. We want to, you have to deliver faster. You have to be able to adapt. And that only occurs by, changes in people and process. Technology is only an enabler if everybody's bought in and you make the necessary changes within the organization for the new way of working. In terms of OnePlan, we are the leader for Microsoft in the project and portfolio management space. And we provide a number of other competencies that you see there. We are a full service organization in terms of delivering not only the solution, but also the advisory services, the training, and the support. So we will accompany you through that journey, that transformation journey, like I said, which is not a fast and quick delivery. This is going to take several phases, and you will have to work on it just like any other major change initiative within your organization. Next week, I am following up with seeing the future state with OnePlan Strategic Portfolio and Smart 360. So if you recall in the earlier slides where I talked about enterprise architecture, we're going to touch on that section of that the domain of enterprise architecture and seeing how it supports strategy definition and portfolio management. So if register so that if you're not able to attend, you can get the recording. The solutions that I showed are on App Source for trial, so feel free to, if you have the ability to add an app through your Microsoft credentials, feel free to engage in a trial. If you have difficulty, please make contact, and we can find an alternative way for you to see the solution. Again, both Strategic Portfolio Management and Adaptive Project Portfolio Management are available within App Source for a free trial. If you're interested in anything of what you saw today, please make contact so that we can dig deeper and talk about your specific local context within your organization and how you can benefit from using any of our services and solutions. And finally, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to what we have to say about outcome-driven metrics and their relationship, within strategy execution and portfolio management. Thank you very much.